Hello, welcome, and thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Aaron Diaz, and you're listening to episode number 7 of Live the Good Life from the podcast studios of Aaron's Wine Chronicles corporate headquarters in Richland, Washington. Today, I'm joined by my brother and co-host, Adam.
Hey, that sounds like some 70s porn music back in the day. A lot of you will appreciate that. Hey, today we're doing a side-by-side tasting of 2 USDA prime boneless ribeye steaks. Each was prepared with a unique marinade and then grilled just before recording this episode. Also, we are pairing these steak samples with a beautiful red mountain wine.
Yeah, you know, if you're hungry, I'm going to tell you right now, this episode is going to drive you freaking crazy. But I can't apologize because it's what we do. It's how we roll.
You know, both my brother and I have a similar approach to marinating steaks. But we also have some distinct differences. We'll discuss those and describe them as we kind of move along into our specific marinade recipes and all that jazz. But as expected, we'll be describing the wine pairing as well. So buckle up and prepare to salivate.
Yeah, so you know what? I want to start this off by talking about the wine first. So in our glasses, we are enjoying a 2014 Quintessence Cabernet Sauvignon from Fidelitas Winery on Red Mountain.
Charlie Hoppus.
That's right. And for those of you who don't know, it was crafted by owner winemaker Charlie Hoppus, who recently turned over the winemaking operations to his son, Will. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with Charlie, he's like a Super Bowl MVP / Hall of Fame pro football player, only in the wine industry. He has made wines for so many different wineries, and not just wines. He's made amazing, outstanding, delicious wines here in Washington State.
And he's a Wapato graduate, man.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're from Wapato, it gives you hope, man. We went to Toppenish, used to play football against those guys, man.
Yeah, that's right.
But I'm telling you, he's
actually,
awesome.
As we speak, I'm telling you, my brother Adam was the captain of the football team for Toppenish High School Wildcats back in the later 80s.
Not to brag.
And I was also the captain of the football team in the early 80s of Toppenish Wildcats.
I copied you or something.
So what I'm saying is, the poor Wapato guys, they used to take it from us, you know.
Yeah, from the Diaz brothers.
But one thing that was really good that came out of Wapato was Charlie Hoppus.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
I got to say that.
He's a good guy to talk to.
You know what? His wine that we opened up is an ideal match for these steaks. And this wine has been decanting for over an hour and a half, and it's drinking really nicely.
Okay, so let's talk about the marinades, man. My process is actually a 2-step process where I immerse the meat in the special marinade for 24 to 48 hours. Honestly, you guys, I'll do 3 to 4 days, no problem. And even sometimes, you know, longer. I don't like to get into 5 days, but I've been known to do 5 days and still eat it. It comes out great. And then I prepare a finishing glaze, which is not the same as the marinade that I use to baste the meat right after it comes off the grill. So I have 2 recipes to share with you today, and it'll be on the website too, stuff. But I'll talk about the marinade recipe first, okay?
All right.
So on my Adam's marinade recipe, what we're talking about is Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. I put about 1/3 of a bottle. Now I'll jack that up to about half a bottle. You know, it depends on how many steaks I got, how many people I'm hosting, or whatever. And about 1/4 to a half a cup of Yoshida's original gourmet sauce. A lot of the stuff you're buying right at Costco, you guys. 1/4 cup of Worcestershire sauce, or more, if desired. And then 2 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar. And then I'll do a can of beer. Now, I'll just usually use like a light beer, Keystone, or Coors Light, or even Michelob Ultras. And then I add generous amounts of Montreal steak seasonings to top the marinade in the bowl. And optionally, if you guys want to use some French Dijon mustard, you can kind of take a spoonful of that and just kind of rub it in there and a dash of lemon juice and stir it. I've done that before. I didn't do it today on this batch, but again, you guys can make this your own. Marinate the steaks for, like I said, in a covered bowl. Make sure the steaks are fully submerged. When you get to the grill, you're going to sear those steaks on each side to seal in the juices while basting with the marinade. You're gonna baste the crap out of them. Some guys are like, I only turn my steaks once, whatever. You know, that's fine. I turn mine a couple times, you know, each side, and then I put them up, then I take them off.
And you're basting them kind of within each time you turn them. You're basting them.
I have
right?
a good point. You know, I'm just trying to use that base. And now remember that base has been exposed to raw meat. So there's a point, you know, about midway through where I'm just taking that out, and then finally I add my sweet, spicy finishing glaze. And so I got it ready to go. It's sitting in the microwave. It's sitting in the bowl. And what I do is I'll get like a cereal bowl.
So this is a two-step process, right?
It is.
Yeah.
So for me, it is.
Yeah, right.
And I love your marinade, by the way. But for me, it's a two-step process. I'll grab like a cereal bowl. I'll put a stick of butter in it. I'll grab 2 handfuls of brown sugar. I use about maybe a quarter of a cup of maple syrup. I like the pure maple syrup shit. And I'll add 2 tablespoons of molasses from the jar in the bowl. And add about 2 to 3 tablespoons of honey habanero dry rub or spice of your preference. I have my own, but a lot of people will find these everywhere, different kinds of dry rubs or spices. Or sometimes I use Greek seasonings when I'm not in the mood for a lot heavy hot spice. Then no need to stir it in yet. You just kind of throw it all in the bowl, stick it in the microwave for about 1:45 to 2 minutes. Watch it, because if it gets to 2 minutes, you're ready to take that sucker out. And if it's a little under 2 minutes, no big deal. Just stir it around, remove it with heating pad so you don't burn yourself. Grab a fork or a spoon, or a small like little ladle, and then just kind of stir the remaining butter to melt. And then you're going to spoon that stuff over your steak, flip it, spoon it again, rebaste it multiple times. And if you cut it, you can throw some more glaze on it. Keep it kind of handy, and that's my process, brother.
Yeah, that's just a little history here behind this recording. Just about 30 minutes ago, my brother and I got together before, you know, we had the studio ready to roll, and all we did was take the meat that has been prepared over the last few days in our marinades, and we threw them on the grill. We cracked open that bottle of wine and let it breathe for a while, and we grilled the meat the way we would personally grill it. And we basted the meat the way we would baste it and did all that process. So this process that my brother just ran you through is the way he would do it at home, even though it was on my grill. And I'm going to tell you, we had a couple of little morsels before we started recording. Freaking delicious.
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah.
So my process is a little bit different than my brother's process in that I go through a single-step marinating process where I immerse the meat, again, and you'll hear that word. Adam and I like to make sure that our meat is completely immersed in the liquid in the marinade. Otherwise, you know, you get if it doesn't reach all the surfaces, then you're just not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You want to infuse as much flavor as you can from the marinade into the meat. So, and I typically go 24 to 48 hours, even sometimes longer, like Adam said. But instead of a finishing glaze, what I'll do is before I put the meat in the marinade, I'll make the marinade up fresh, and I'll take a couple of sample batches out of it, like maybe a cup or 2, and I'll put them in these small little mini bowls. And when people come over to eat, they can dip their meat in a small sample of the fresh marinade. But I don't do a special finishing glaze like Adam does.
Yours rocks, though, man. I love it.
You know, also, my marinade is a little thicker. It's more viscous. It's thicker, and I'll tell you the reasons why when I get into the ingredients. I like it to stick to the meat, and it doesn't run off the meat. Not that there's a bad thing with that, because I can tell you, every steak I've ever had at Adam's house is outstanding, and he makes a more liquidy meat. So as you put it on, it'll pool on top of the steak, but it'll also run off. If it gets to the edge, it'll run off. Yeah. Mine is thicker and will stick to the meat. So what I do is, with a really hot grill, some of that marinade will actually caramelize, and it'll add that crispy texture that I'm telling you, it's like heaven in your mouth when it's caramelized over a part of the meat that has charred fat on it.
It's a mouth orgasm.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I also, like Adam, emphasize 100% immersion of that meat during the marinade window, and I typically make large volumes of marinade that typically fill up a large Tupperware bowl or a glass serving bowl so that I can put a number of steaks in there, because my marinade is not, I don't want to say Adam's marinade is simple, but it is more simple in the number of ingredients that he uses.
Yeah, that's fair to say.
Mine has so many freaking ingredients. Some people may not even want to look at how to reproduce this.
Yeah, you put a lot of crap in it, man.
I do. I have a lot of stuff that I put in.
It's worth it, though, especially if you're going to be hosting a lot of people.
And that's typically when I make it. I really won't make the marinade when it's just me and my wife.
2 or 3 guys.
When it's just me and my wife, I'll just put on my dry spice rub, and then I'll throw some butter on at the end. Butter and olive oil.
And that's another episode.
That is another episode where there's some things that you can do with just a dry rub. But so about my marinade, I'm going to go through the ingredients. Now, for the base, I typically use 1 bottle of Sweet Baby Ray's and 1 bottle of either Kinder's mild barbecue sauce, and that actually is a sauce that my brother turned me on to here about 6 or 8 months ago. I had never even heard of it.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, hey, this Kinder's mild barbecue, and they have multiple flavors, but I like the mild one because it's sweet. Mm-hmm. I'll use a bottle of Sweet Baby Ray's and Kinder's, or I'll use a bottle of Sweet Baby Ray's and KC Masterpiece Original.
That's nice.
Now, the KC Masterpiece gives it more of a smoky mesquite flavor, whereas the Kinder's mild barbecue sauce added to Sweet Baby Ray's is just all about the sweetness. So what I'm here to tell you folks is that with my marinade, it's a lot like me personally. I like sweet and hot, baby. Seriously, that's how I make my marinade, sweet and hot. And this one is the marinade that I made is more on the hot side. It's got sweetness to it, and it's got that hot sesame smoky flavor. It's really delicious. So the next thing I'll add is Yoshida's Original Gourmet Sauce, and Adam also mentioned this. This is a key ingredient for both of our recipes. I also add Kikkoman's Teriyaki, along with some sesame oil and pure maple syrup. I also like adding some sources of citric acid and vinegar because that helps break down the proteins in the meat for more tenderness. And this is especially important, like when Adam and I grill, we're grilling USDA prime steaks. We're grilling Wagyu steaks. These are so damn tender, you could eat them frozen and they're tender. You can cut them with a knife. But, if you're going to have a choice cut of meat, or you're going to have a cut of meat that's like a sirloin that might be a little bit on the non-tender side, if you marinate it in something like this that has citric acid and vinegar and also some alcohol in it, those things will help break down the fibers of the meat and make it more tender. So I like adding, the vinegar. So it's like some pineapple juice, fresh squeezed lemon. I'll also add a little bit of red wine vinegar and apple cider vinegar to the mix. And then alcohol to the mix. I usually will put a full beer in or half a beer. Mm-hmm. But if I don't have any beer, because I'm not a huge beer drinker, I will put whiskey or bourbon in. And I'll literally put like a half a cup to a full cup of whiskey or bourbon into this mix. Of course, I add Worcestershire sauce, and sometimes I'll add just a dash of liquid smoke. Now, a lot of people don't like liquid smoke. But
it's strong, though. Huh?
It is strong. So if you just use a few, like a half a teaspoonful or something like that, that's all you really need. And then I also put heaping tablespoons of either spicy brown mustard or Dijon mustard into the bowl. And I thicken it up by adding some molasses and some golden or dark brown sugar to the mix. Now, depending on my mood, I will typically add a full diced onion, a sweet onion, typically. If it's a Walla Walla onion, it's the best in the world. If I have jalapenos, I'll add 7 to 10 jalapenos, dice them up, no seeds, and put those in. I always tend to add 1 or 2 mounded tablespoons of minced garlic into the mix. And for spices, I'll start with Montreal steak seasoning, and some of this is similar to what Adam does in his. Then I'll add healthy amounts of chili powder, garlic powder, parsley flakes, red chili flakes, snipped chives, toasted sesame seeds, red cayenne pepper, Mediterranean spices, and then Grill Master's Applewood Rub and Grill Master's Smokehouse Maple Seasoning. I like both of those.
Yeah.
And then I'll add in this honey habanero rub that Adam and I really enjoy, and some ground chipotle and smoked paprika. Regular paprika doesn't really taste like anything, as far as I'm concerned. But if you get the smoked paprika, it tastes delicious. And then I take all of that stuff that I just mentioned, mix it thoroughly, and I'll extract a couple of cups of it for dipping or post-basting later on. But I don't typically do that like Adam does. Next, I'll add the meat to the bowl. I make sure it's totally immersed, and then there should be no surface area of the meat that hasn't been exposed. After the container is sealed, I'll throw it into the fridge for 24 hours, and then I'll go back to the bowl after the first 24, and I'll move the steaks around. I'll flip them, move them around, resubmerge them, just to make sure that they're not. Sometimes they'll float to the top, right? So I want to make sure that they're all getting the infusion that I want them to get. And then, you can cook these things after 24 hours if you want. I think an additional 24 going to 48 really makes a big difference with the flavor infusion and the additional tenderness that you get. So with regard to tips for making the marinade, mixing is very important. Adam mentioned this in his description. You got to mix things thoroughly. The thing is, with so many things that I add, I'm adding
a lot
more than so many spices. Yeah. They'll glob up in chunks.
You really have
so
to. So
you've got to smash this stuff and mix it really good so that you don't have a chunk of brown sugar, on your marinade.
Can you use one of those little mini egg beaters? You see the smaller ones?
Whisks, right?
Whisk.
I do that. I'll use a whisk.
That's great.
Yeah, but it's really important that you mix it up because I do put a ton of crap in mine.
Yeah, you do.
And the other thing about my marinade relative to Adam's is that it's more expensive because I'm putting so much crap in it. Yeah. Adam's is really reasonable to make, and it's very quick to make, and it tastes like heaven.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Exactly. But, my marinade, the spices alone are pretty spendy. And when I'm making a big bowl of it, I don't put a teaspoon or a tablespoon of spices in. I put a layer. I'll layer the top, maybe 1/8 of an inch thick on the bowl, and then I'll go to the next spice and put another layer.
So you can't really give them a real amount. It's just you just kind of eyeball it and you play with it. Make it your own.
That's exactly right. But when I'm trying to infuse my meat with certain flavors, they work in synergistic fashion, meaning that all these things work together, these different flavors, to create what I'm looking for in a large batch of marinade. I noticed that my brother across the way is actually eating the steak that we were supposed to review in 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, and now he's actually eating it. I can't let him do that. I'm going to go ahead and have to put something in my mouth as well.
Good Lord.
Oh, my God. This is succulent.
God.
Oh, my God. Your steak is really good.
Thanks, bro. Yeah. I tried yours earlier. You didn't notice.
Okay.
I looked like that creepy guy in the gym on the treadmills checking out the young girls when I ate it.
Oh, man. So, okay. I'm going to talk about some tips on the grilling process that you might be interested in. One of the things that we do, both Adam and I do this, you get your grill as hot as you can before you throw the meat on.
Yeah.
Don't put the meat on and then turn the grill on and let it heat up over time. That I don't know who would do that, but maybe there are some slow people out there who might do that. Yeah. But you get your grill really hot. And I'm talking as hot as a normal Weber grill might get, around 550 to 600, maybe 650 on a good hot summer day. Yeah. And then you put your meat on. Always have a spray bottle filled with some water near you, or an open can of beer, something like that.
Beer works good.
Because you're going to have to extinguish some small eruptions of flame that may or may not. I mean, you just heard all of these ingredients that we put in, right? And some of these ingredients are flammable. So you're going to want to have some water there. I always aim for a true medium rare steak, as does my brother. Now, if we have guests over, and these guests come from another planet and they want theirs well done or whatever, then we'll do it. But
God, it just makes you want to cut your pinky finger off.
It does. It does.
But I mean, you got to respect it. You try your best. Yeah. I think when someone tells me well done,
just be a vegan. I turn into a vegan. Well, why do you even eat meat?
I try to get it. I probably end up getting it a little past medium for them. Mm-hmm. And in my best effort, it just
continues
morally,
cooking a little bit.
I can't do anything more.
Yeah, it's almost an ethical thing, right? It's almost on principle.
But they seem to walk away happy, and that could be because of all the good wine.
Yeah. So I like my steaks cut on the thicker side as well, and I know my brother does too. Typically 1.5 inches to 2 inches for these ribeyes. That's what we aimed at. If they're too thin, it just makes it more challenging to cook, and it's easy to overcook them. And Adam and I are the kind of guys that when we grill, we're usually having a drink. It's either a libation of some sort with bourbon or whiskey, or it's a wine or whatever. And we've got friends over, and we've got family over, and we're trying to hold a conversation with somebody. We're trying to cook the meat. We're enjoying our drink. Before you know it, 2 or 3 minutes go by, and if you have a thin steak, it's done. It's something could happen, right? So I like the thicker. You get more forgiveness with a thicker steak, and so then I'll slap the steaks on the grill. You fully glaze them with a marinade. You leave them on for 3 to 4 minutes at a time on one side. Turn them over, and as you're flipping these steaks, you're rebasting them like Adam described. And you do this for like 4 minutes, 4 to 4.5 minutes on each side for these thicker steaks. And then you can do other things with them. Towards the end, sometimes Adam and I, if we have steaks that have like a lot of fat on the edges of the steak, we'll turn them on their edge and put them on the grill so that it sears and cooks that steak. The fat.
As
really
many
good.
of us Mexicans say, chicharrón.
That's right. We'll char it. It's charred.
We'll
but
char
it's,
that, man.
It's chicharrón.
Yeah.
And we'll do that, and then we'll put these pieces of meat up on the top of the grill and let them kind of heat up just a little bit so that we get the right temperature in the middle of those steaks. Always, of course, giving them typically a last marinade once they're on the top of the grill. Then it's important to rest the steaks. People have heard about this. Frankly, for me, you can actually over rest a steak, I think,
Yeah.
I don't, because if you rest it too long, you're eating cold. You're eating cold meat.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, I like 3 to 5 minutes. Some people say 5 to 10. I don't think you can go wrong, but I'd rather eat them when they're fairly warm. And then, of course, like Adam mentioned, make sure you throw away all that marinade sauce that was in contact with the raw meat. If you've done something like I suggested where you take samples of the marinade out, before you put the meat in, that's great. Or if you do like Adam does, where he's using a baste after, you can actually take that baste, reheat it, and rebaste your meat when you're sitting at the table. You can continue to baste it as many times as you want.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about that?
Well, so if you start looking at how, like, I prepare my process, and Aaron prepares with his approach, he gets in and he cuts each steak in half, and we both have portions, to be able to compare it with this wine we have today. And, I like what you did. You chopped them up pretty good. We got 2 sides there. Yeah. God, that's good.
So,
I'm going to have a bite right now.
is it time to sample?
Yeah.
So, I think it's time to sample these steaks.
Oh, man.
I want you to tell me what your thoughts are.
So I'm holding this up to the camera right now. I want them to see. Beautiful. So, oh my God. So mine's over on the green side. You put a green tab. And that just melts in your mouth. You got that maple syrup, honey habanero. And you talk about a steak getting cold, but then you put my hot glaze on it. I mean, and that fucker is hot. When I bring that fucking bowl out, you guys got to use those mitts or a towel. You'll burn yourself. And when it's bubbling and stuff, you don't want it exploding in your microwave, but no more than 2 minutes. When you pull that sucker out, it reheats the meat, gives it a good fresh flavor. And
Man. So okay, you're drinking the wine too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that pairing of that Red Mountain wine from Fidelitas is really great with either one of these steaks.
Yours is a little spicier than normal.
Yeah, like I said, I make it hot and sweet, kind of like me.
Hot today.
Kind of
Today's hot.
Kind of like me.
That's good. Oh, Charlie Hoppus, God bless him.
I'm telling you,
God, that guy can make a wine, can he?
if we had advertisers, we'd go to a commercial break right now, but we don't.
But if we did, we'd be sponsored by Padron 1926 series. As you're seeing in the camera, this here is a cigar that will be smoked after this episode.
Or we would be sponsored by Drew Estates.
Oh, yes.
Liga Privada number 9?
Number 9.
Yes.
Yeah. And
What a great
those
cigar.
Man, those suckers
Great
sell
cigar.
out fast, too, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They're hard to get.
They are. Man, but the Padron, top of the line, you're talking mid-20 a stick. That's about, per cigar, mid-20s. Just depends on when you get them. Of course, where. Might find a sale.
I'm telling you, the wine is a perfect pairing with this meat.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter which steak it is because Adam's meat is sweet, and mine is kind of sweet, but it's also kind of hot.
Yeah, today it's kind of hot.
Yeah.
It's a little hotter than normal, and I like that because it's like a medium hot, medium high hot, right in between, and it's just perfect. I like that kind of adds to that flavor. So let's talk a little bit about homework assignment. Okay? Go online, study up on some marinade recipes, or use one of our recipes. Go out and find a nice cut of meat, and say filet mignon or ribeye, or find a wine to pair it with. And if you go with a sweeter type marinade, a Syrah might be a good pairing. And if you go with like something on the spicier side, you might want to consider like a Malbec. And gosh,
we have a lot of good
When
Malbecs.
you start talking Malbec, I start thinking Frechette Winery.
But you know what? You also should start thinking
Hamilton.
Charlie Hoppus, because he makes Hamilton's wines.
I was going to say Hamilton.
And they make award-winning Malbecs. Why? Because Charlie's making them.
Yeah.
Right?
Go to Hamilton, man. And the Malbecs are, gosh, what a great option there for wine tasters. So, and that's all at Red Mountain, you guys, here. Just near Benton City.
That Cabernet will work pretty well, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're drinking right now. We're drinking
and that's what we're doing here. So, you might just amaze yourself and your friends. And make our recipes your own. When we throw something at you, change it up. Make it right for you. Maybe too spicy. I've thrown Greek seasonings in mine instead of honey habanero.
Mediterranean stuff.
Dry seasonings.
Yeah.
And you get a whole different flavor. If you have people that are in recovery or that don't want a bunch of alcohol and stuff, you don't need to put alcohol in it. But they might want to pair it with something different, like, that they prefer to drink with it.
Yeah, so, one of the things we're going to do later on in another episode is talk about dry rubs. This was about marinades.
Yeah.
And we have more recipes than just these two marinades, obviously. But we're going to talk about dry rubs. And there are some amazing dry rub spices from countries like Argentina and Mexico.
Yeah.
And we'll be hitting on those at some point, too. So, I hope that this episode has piqued your appetite and given you some helpful tips regarding marinades, general grilling tips, and wine pairings. As I look across the table, my brother's stuffing his face with meat. Thank you for joining us. And that's all we really have for today's episode. But again, for more of Living the Good Life, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Aaron's Wine Chronicles or online at aaronswinechronicles.com. And for the video podcast of this episode, visit my YouTube channel at the @ Aaron's Wine Chronicles 6666. So, on our next episode, I'll be interviewing Bart Fawbush. Bart is the owner and winemaker of Bartholomew Winery in Kennewick, Washington. We'll be talking about Bart's unique and amazing winemaking style and philosophy, and how he utilizes grapes you've probably never heard of.
He's an awesome dude, and he's the kind of guy that when you come into his winery, he's going to make you feel really welcome. He'll sit down with you, chat with you, get a feel for what it is you like, and he has a lot to offer. We just love running into Bart when we go over there.
And you're a club member.
I am.
So yeah, we're really looking forward to that episode. So I want to just say thank you all for listening, and remember, wherever you go, whenever you can, always live the good life.